continue the conversation, this time around in Uganda, where two Ugandan lawmakers aligned with the opposition National Unity Platform have finally been granted bail after held in custody for 17 months without trial. The leader of the opposition, Matua, has suggested that the charges against the lawmakers, Alan Sewanyana and Mohammed Segrinya, were politically motivated and no coherent evidence was presented. The prosecutor had previously blocked several bail applications on the grounds that the legislators may interfere with investigations as part of a law stipulating automatic bail for criminal suspects held on remand. For 6 months, the legislators were detained until Supreme Court Chief Justice Alphonse Owini-Dolo demanded that their trial should begin, whether or not the state was prepared.
Now, the charges related to the men's alleged involvement in 26 killings in Gbenga and massacre where elderly victims were killed by machetes. The bail applications were approved based on the legislators' need for medical care that was not provided by the prison facilities. Both lawmakers were immediately rushed to hospitals for urgent medical attention following their release. And joining us for this conversation, we have Kyama, journalist, and we also have Matua Richard, who is a senior cadre, ruling party National Resistance Movement, and we also have Freddie Egesa, who is a private investigator, all joining from Kampala, Uganda. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation. All right, so if you can hear me, I'm going to begin with Freddie. Now, Freddie, these members of parliament have been in jail for about 17 months. So first of all, what was your reaction to the news of the court granting them bail? And of course, can you also lead us through incidents that led to their arrest in the first place?
Thank you so much. What I have to say here is that, of course, we have no doubt that there was a crisis of machete wielding criminals who were attacking and killing Ugandans indiscriminately without a clear objective, without possibly even a clear goal. So that was the time again, I think, whereby there was that situation. We had just come out, we have just come through elections, and of course we opposition, and then the government and opposition. There is a fracas in between the two, and I think it is normal in every other country. So basically what happened is, what I think was the situation is, the government alleges that the two legislators, that is Segirinya Muhammadi and Sewanyana Alex, where they believe that the statements which were being made them by the two could possibly have been statements made to incite and made to support such activities. And so in the process, I think even the country was at the crossroad. The country was at the crossroad because we're losing people, and the government didn't know who the killers were. And at the same time, these being young legislators, I think they were a bit excited because of Parliament, and to a certain extent, a few words could have been uttered, which possibly the government interpreted as words of encouraging people to go to war against the government, and in the process they are apprehended. So what we are looking at here is, why did they stay on remand for a very long time? Yeah. Of course, if I'm to look at this as a security personnel, I would say that possibly because security thought that if we keep them a bit longer, and possibly if they are the suspects in the case of killing Ugandans, then it will subside. The killings will subside. As we are talking now, of course, the killings have subsided. We are not saying that they are the people who are killing or not, because this is a case which is before court, but we are yet to see their defense vis-a-vis what the government comes out with to prosecute them, and then their defense.
Thank you very much. I'd like to bring in Matua Richard Job here. Now, Richard, the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda stipulates that you cannot hold somebody without granting them bail for longer than 6 months. We saw that was not the case in this case. And the leader of the opposition in Parliament, Matthias Mpuga, said that matter of these two NUP legislators was not an issue of prosecution, but instead of persecution for their political views. is the NRM-led government using lawfare? Are they using the law to clamp down on opposition views and dissent in the country? What's your take on this matter?
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother Gbenga. First of all, greetings to you. Good evening in Lagos.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for your invitation, and I thank you very much for always considering me in such conversation. I want to go to the question you have asked me. You know, first of all, the government of national resistance movement is anchored on the rule of law. It is a government that rescued Uganda from a terrible state of dictatorship and the lawlessness that existed in the past government of Idi Amin Dada and the Tito Kalolotua. So I can tell you that the government of NRM is not using the rule of law to clamp down on opposition. So the matter that was before the court for adjudication has nothing to do with the NRM as the government. It is purely a judicial matter. If there's anything we are to blame, then blame the judiciary for its inefficiency, but not the government. Otherwise, the government of NRM that I subscribe to is a government that promotes complete rule of law. My brother Gbenga.
Thank you, Richard.
Now, Richard, thank you so much. I'm going to bring in Freddie. I don't know if we have Eric with us. Eric, are you still with us? Eric, can you hear us? Okay, while we try to get your audio, I'm going to throw this question to Freddie. Now, Freddie, there's been lots of accusations on the ruling party, and even though they're calling on the blame of judiciary by our former guests, there's still been a lot of people who have said that, you know, Uganda's government has been cracking down a whole lot on the opposition. Now, what does this release of Sewanyana and Seriginya on bail mean for other political people still in detention in Uganda? Does it have any major significance on the present atmosphere in Uganda? Can you hear me?
Atmosphere here, I think, like we should go through several law reforms to kind of straighten judiciary. There are still so many problems. You know, judges in Uganda, you know, they are at international level. These are international people. But at the same time, I think we still have a lot of problems when it comes to maybe detentions and the bails and the bonds and things like that. So there should be, I think, to me, maybe this is my mind as a security personnel, that the judiciary has to appear to be practicing independence by dealing with matters of security, of dealing with matters of dispensing justice as soon and as quick as possible. So if we do not see any sign that security or government interfered in, maybe like we have ever had a situation where people had issues, and the judge released suspects. The judge released the people who was from court, and then by then the government rounded them up and took them back into cells. That's direct interference. But in a situation whereby these are just insinuations, someone thinks that maybe government came in and told the judge, don't release this or don't do the other, and the judges don't bother to practice their independence, we cannot blame that on the NRM. Definitely, it will go on the docket and on the record of the judiciary.
So, Freddie, you agree with Richard when he said this is purely a judicial matter and the government has nothing to do with this?
Yeah, yes, I think I'll agree with Richard, because even under normal circumstances, you know, there are several things we have to put right in Uganda, like the situation of granting bail. You know, even in some misdemeanors, we find that people are kept in cells, and which we think is really something that needs to reform, whereby you even, you know, with the capital offenses, maybe I would understand that there is a kind of a preventive measure so that maybe a situation does not escalate, or there is suspicion here and there. But there are small cases where we believe that we shouldn't even be keeping our brothers in cells. But I think the judiciary has not addressed this. And a magistrate here, a judge here, has all the discretion to grant or deny bail, or even to put the bail fee at a very high. And even there are times when I've seen the government even being, the ruling party of the government being helpless around the judges. So to me, I still say that the judges had the discretion to do the right thing the way they felt. And if they have done it that way, maybe I still believe that it's the judiciary to give an explanation to the international world and to Ugandans.
Okay, Richard, I'm going to come over to you because this situation has highlighted a whole lot of things coming up in Uganda, especially with the fact that the Ugandan government just recently said it will not renew the mandate of the UN Rights Office in Uganda, while there's still criticisms of Uganda's government under the president, Yoweri Museveni. So can you tell us one of the reasons why the Ugandan government said it will not renew the mandate of the UN Rights Office when there are a lot of accusations that human rights have been trampled upon in Uganda?
Sister, I want to tell you that we Africans should be able to trust ourselves. This business of UN and what have you, this imperialism, and we must really depart from this kind of neo-colonial mindset. If UN is concerned about human rights, what has it done in the Eastern DRC? MONUSCO has been there under UN for over 22 years. In fact, UN is a superstructure of the imperialists in the Western world. And I want to tell you that we must begin to trust in our own civil society organization like the Union.
Richard, are you still with us?
Okay, well, we try to... Okay.
Okay.
I don't respect. I don't respect UN. I can tell you very, very sincerely. What did it do in Libya? What did it do in Ethiopia? It was the very UN vehicles that were transporting guns to the rebels in Tigray. So anything dealing with the UN, I have serious allergies towards it, and I'm sorry to say so. So therefore, we should not trust in UN human rights. It is instead a superstructure of the imperialists in the Western world.
Okay, Richard, it's not just the UN Human Rights Office. I mean, that is one of the issues here. But we also have reports from other people in Uganda complaining about harassment of human rights abuses. Now, what has the Ugandan government done to persuade people that it is actually a free and fair government and that there is no dissent on the opposition, even with all this arrest and people staying in jail for about 17 months?
Thank you very much for that question. And I want to very sincerely appreciate you for asking it. The government of Uganda does not have any policy to torture or even to abuse the rights of Ugandan. In fact, if you go to our constitution, we have a full chapter with the largest number of articles in our constitution detailing about human rights and freedom. So it cannot be the same government that championed the rights of Uganda abusing it. And I can tell you, people who are being abused are done by isolated individuals. Those isolated cases, they are not official government policy, and therefore should not be entirely blamed on the government. Errant officers that make mistakes are always severely punished, because the government of National Resistance Movement is a government of human rights, is a government of the people of Uganda.
Thank you very much, Richard. I would like to bring in Freddie into this conversation. Still talking about the human rights situation in Uganda. But I'm sure a lot of political activists will disagree with you. I remember speaking on the same platform with Kakwenza, who is currently in exile in Germany, and he said that General Muhoozi Kainerugaba supervised is torture. And also Dr. Kize Besigye, and we saw the harassment meted upon members of the opposition NUP, Robert Changalani's party, Bobby Wine. So my question to you is, what is the current state of political freedoms and human rights in Uganda? And do you agree with Richard that the government of Uganda, the NRM-led government, is one that is a government of human rights and respects human rights?
Thank you so much. Of course, we have had pockets of human rights abuse, which are mainly persons, not as a police. The government of Uganda, my observation is that we do not have a designed, I'm not saying any design of torturing people, but individuals, of course, have tortured. And we are on record. You could have monitored that our own human rights organization, Uganda Human Rights Organization, is sentencing several people, is even awarding people who have been tortured with awards. Of course, the awards are also probably very small, but it is a starting point. I, for one, I wouldn't see any reason why we should send away the United Nations Human Rights Organization. But of course, the only reason I would see as tangible will be a situation that we allow our own human rights organization to take space, to take shape, and develop capacity and muscle to handle issues of human rights. And possibly, when they see we still have that phobia of saying that when a white person is here, then everybody falls in, and he may not even do his work, thinking that the whites will do it for themselves, for us. So what I'm saying is that yes, if the government is not renewing the mandate of the UN Human Rights Organization, it should be that our own, that is the Uganda Human Rights Organization, develops muscle through. I mean, it is independent, it is free, and it has all the space to investigate cases and even give awards. I'm not happy about the military awards they are giving. Like if someone was tortured, beaten, and you give him 6 million shillings, which is less than $2,000. But I believe and feel that one, as Ugandans, we have to build capacity, because if anybody is tortured, is our child, is our son, is our person, irrespective of his creed, irrespective of his political agenda and mine. I may disagree a bit with my fellow NRM guy who overprotects. When there is a mistake, we should bring it out as a mistake for purposes of changing and improving. Yes, we cannot say that we have not had tortures, but what we are saying is that tortures should be addressed. And good enough, I have seen government, we have had even the minister saying that torture is not a policy in Uganda, but of course we have had tortures which we cannot deny. And I think that we should address this, because otherwise we are killing our own country.
Quickly, Freddie, before we move to Eric, you did mention that monetary compensation is recommended by the Ugandan human rights organizations and Water View. But beyond this monetary compensation for victims of torture, is there punitive action carried out against those who torture citizens, so as to serve as a deterrent and lessons for others who might be willing to go against official NRM policy?
Thank you so much. Of course, the law now, our law has been uplifted to the extent that if you are tortured, other than going to human rights for compensation, you can still, I'm not very sure about the law, but either it can be double prosecution, that you go to civil court and you take that person, whoever has tortured you, you take whoever has tortured you to court, and they make sure that restitution is done. At the same time, a punishment is meted to that person. In fact, to me, that's what I'm saying, that our human rights organization is still a bit shaky, because I would see situations whereby they would come up with judgments of saying, yes, Joseph was tortured, he's taking so much home, and it should be a good amount of money. And besides that, whoever has tortured him should be punished, because if you say he has been tortured, then because this is the evidence. So I wonder if the certain stage, maybe such a person can use the same judgment to go for punitive action, or maybe it can be used in the criminal proceedings to punish the offender who has possibly done tortures.
All right, thank you so much, Freddie. I'd like to bring in Eric right now, Eric Kyama. Now, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. We've been looking at the release granted on bail for these two MPs, that is Alan and Mohammed, who have been in jail for about 17 months in Uganda. And finally, they have been granted bail. Now, lots of things have been having in our conversation. I've been looking at it being the prosecution or a political persecution? So first of all, I would like your reaction to the release of these MPs, and if you actually feel that this was a political persecution against these legislators.
Thank you very much, but pardon me on the last bit. I didn't hear you very well.
Okay, I said I would like to have your take on the release of the legislators, and if you actually feel that this 17 months in jail without actually knowing what happened is actually a political persecution, or it was a rightful prosecution of these legislators.
First of all, when these MPs were arrested in 2021 for the alleged machete killings in Masaka, it came off as a shock to most people in the opposition and even us, the media, because none of us expected that they would do such a thing, you know. The reaction when they were released from jail, that was yesterday. Of course, the opposition was happy, saying finally they're out of the jail. But then there are also other voices saying there's a possibility that they have had to agree on something with the state. Their release from jail is of course going to cause is raising a lot of questions in the opposition, who are saying that that perhaps they have been compromised by the state, while others are still saying that they are still in for the cause, you know. So basically, that's it.
Now, Eric, as a member of the Fourth Estate of the RAM, how can the government of Uganda and civil society work together to promote accountability and transparency in the justice system to ensure that all citizens are treated fairly and equally under the law, regardless of party affiliations?
Government of Uganda working with the civil society can only happen if something is in the interest of the government, you know. In most cases, when something is not in the interest with the president, what the president wants and all that, there's usually a problem there. But we are, in some cases, we have seen government work hand in hand with the civil society when it comes to causes like HIV, malaria, Ebola, and the like. But when it comes to politics, it's a little bit tricky. So asking me how the government can work with them, yes, they can work together to make sure that those persecutions don't happen. But still, well, the problem is that sometimes government are the culprits of such actions.
And if I may add, what's the implication of the government's expulsion of the United Nations Human Rights Office in Kampala in Uganda?
The implications will really not be good, because as me and you could already be knowing, third world countries, developing countries like Uganda, usually have there isn't respect of human rights in those countries. So chances are high that there won't be anyone to watch over whatever is taking place, you know. So really the implications won't be good. Won't be good because we don't know whether the government is really committed. Yes, they have tried to put in place bodies like the Uganda Human Rights Commission to try to stop the violation of human rights. But then again, like I've told you, the government, that is the president himself, he has his own interests, political interests. If something is not in line with his political interests, of course, it won't work. Yes.
And also looking at this case, I'm going to bring in Freddie into all of this now. You're an investigator. I mean, these killings in Luwengo rather than Masaka, about 26 people were killed, and now these legislators have been released on bail. So have the perpetrators of this act been found? What exactly is on with that case? Is that the end of the case, or is the government and judiciary still trying to do their findings to make sure that these culprits are caught?
Now it is the time for the state to state their case before the public, before everybody, as they claim that the legislators are culpable for the offense. And now it's also the right time for the legislators and their lawyers to put up their defense. And our eyes are open to see, because those who lost their loved ones definitely demand for justice. And we are just, so the question is, was this a political kind of arrest, or was there evidence? That's what we are yet to look at as a country. And prayerfully, we say that let the truth, and only the truth, come through and come right.
I'd like to say thank you to you gentlemen for being a part of today's program. Eric Kyama, journalist, and Matua Richard Job, as a senior cadre member of the ruling National Resistance Movement, NRM, in Uganda, and also Freddie David Egesa, a private investigator. We do appreciate your insights and contributions to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And this is where we drop the anchor on today's show. In the first half of the program, we did look at political arrest ordered by President Kais Saied in Tunisia. We just looked at the release of 2 MPs on bail after spending 17 months without trial in Uganda. I'm Gbenga Aborowa. Thank you for being a part of the program.
And I'm Rita Omodia. See you again on Friday. Bye-bye.
All right.